No, they're gonna learn Hebrew. Right. Oh, no worries. Hmm. Okay. All right. So we good, right? All right. So real quick. So in this here, I want everyone that don't know the letters. You guys are gonna know for right here. Everyone's ever heard of the Bagadkephat letters? You remember that, right? Certain, which takes the good. Remember, these are the ones that take the Dagesh Lene. Do y'all remember this from your modern Hebrew class? Yes, Forte and Lene, right? Forte strong, Kazakh strong, right? Lene weak, right? All right. So what I want you to see here, though, is the Bagadkephat letters. We're going to be going over these. I just want you guys to commit those to memory. For those that don't know nothing about it, no worries. I'm just giving you guys heads up as to what to expect when we get started. All right. So if you want to look it up there early, this will be the time for you to know what to look for. All right. So just keep this in mind that we're going to be talking about this more because it works a little bit different in biblical Hebrew, and then we're going to see it under different languages. Let's say, we might do a little bit of Ugaritic, a little bit of Aramaic, just to kind of see how all that stuff happens. Okay. Nah, you said cannot. Right there, you see the hourglass. You see right there. Keep going. Right next. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Bam. What is that thing? All right. Okay. So no worries. I mean, once they, yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. You can. All right. So within these here, now notice something which we'll talk about when class gets started. Notice that for right now, you see the dagesh and the bet, right? It's saying B without it. You see it as a V as in vine. But notice the other two. Look at it says the gimel. Notice the G, and then notice without the dagesh in it, it's what? Hmm? Gas, right? So, but see, in biblical Hebrew, there is a distinction between this. In modern Hebrew, there is not, right? So we're going to keep going down. Look at the dalet. Notice with the dagesh, it's a duh, right? But what about without it? Okay. So see, there's a slight difference. Yes. Hmm. See that with it, it's a hard K as in king. Soft is ha, right? Bach or lach, stuff like that. Then of course the pay with it is a P, without it's a F sound, right? Then of course the ta with the dagesh in it, or the ta with the dagesh, you see it's a T, without it is a TH as in thin, right? All right, so we're going to see how this works when we get started, because we're going to set all the grammar rules up front before we start actually reading the Hebrew. Okay, so we'll go to the next one real quick. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no worries. All right. So here is just on this transliteration side, right? This transliteration side. These are where a lot of the academics use, right? So I'm contemplating on using this for those that have the 22 letters down, with the exception of maybe certain sounds of certain Bagadkephat letters. We're going to talk about these transliteration where you can find these a lot of scholarly books, right? So you see one like a superscript reverse C, if you will, that's an aleph. Then look at the ayin, right? If you go down to the ayin, notice it's the opposite side, right? So you'll see a lot of these in scholarly books, lexicons, dictionaries. So when you see it in English, you don't see it in Hebrew, you'll know how to actually translate it from the transliteration of it back to the Hebrew. Okay, so we'll know how to do that. We'll go to the next one. For those that are at the very beginning, just these are lookalike letters. All right. So you remember, you might get confused. So I want you to start brushing up on this here, so you know what your look-alike letters look like, and then how to distinguish between the two. Mhm. Okay. Do you want us to go? You said, do I want you guys to go to block? Right. Right. This biblical Hebrew is all block. There's no script writing for scripture. Mhm. Okay. All right. Next slide. All right. Now, this here is going to be a lot of what you guys are going to start getting used to. All right. So you're going to see here vowel letters with the hey. You're going to see the vowel letters with the vav, as it's commonly called, the oo or the o. You're going to see with the yod. These three are the main ones you're going to recognize. Right. Now, a lot of these are what they call historically long vowels, meaning the hey, the yo, and the wow, or the vav, as it's commonly called. These were used as vowels. And we're going to see how it works and why. Why would they use these as vowels? And how does it work? Because you'll see these things, let's say, on the Dead Sea Scrolls. You'll see it in the Moabite stone. You'll see it in Hezekiah's, Salem's text. You'll see a lot of this here. So you're going to figure out, so they did have vowels. These are consonants operating as vowels. So we'll see how that works. But for right now, you guys are going to need to learn this pattern. Okay, we'll go to the next one. All right, so here, the breakdown of each vowel, right? So those that are going to be brand new in the class, I'll use this opportunity to go over the patak, right? It's like a little dash, but we'll also say, as in the Yemenites, pathak, right? So the pathak is what we would say patak. So we're going to learn a little bit of the Yemen or the older Hebrew when we go through a lot of these words and stuff like that. We'll share the difference between a patak and a kamatz, right? As we would say modern, patak, kamatz, right? So both from an ah sound, right? But there in biblical Hebrew, there was a distinction. So we're going to go over how to distinguish that. You're going to see, for an example, how the reduced. So you see at the very bottom where it talks about the reduced. All right. So does anyone know how to reduce? How does the reduce work? The reduced vowels. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. For right now, just memorize them in their respective port: the A, the E, the I, O, and U. All right, and then we're going to share why it gets reduced, how it gets reduced, why, for example, gutturals don't take a schwa, and why there's a reducing that takes place. We're going to go over compensatory lengthening. Compensatory lengthening is going to be just okay. Well, I'll wait because it might be too much for you guys to get right now. All right, so. But you'll see, these are terms that you guys will see and understand in the future. So it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be big, hurry up, learn this. We're going to the next. It's not going to be set up that way. So everyone's going to be able to grow and learn together. So because once we get the grammar in place, then when we start reading the text, you're going to understand why why it went from a patak or a pathak to a kamat. A compensatory lengthening is what that is. So that means you got to learn what are long vowels, short vowels, how did it go from a short vowel to a long vowel, or long vowel to a short vowel? How did that happen? So we're going to see how that works in this here. Now, one might say, why is that important when we ultimately want to learn ancient Hebrew or Paleo, for an example? You're going to see why it's going to be important from the grammar, because in Paleo, you're not going to learn this. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. Okay, go to the next one. All right, so this is just a little chart to show you the Babylonian vowel pointing. Notice it was up top. Okay, this is the Babylonians. So they had vowel pointings during the time of the Babylonians. The Palestinians had theirs also on the top, just slightly different. Then the Tiberian text, what everyone's pretty much familiar with. And then if you look at the schwa, commonly called the shiva, notice that that's not a vowel. So all these other are vowels, but the schwa is not a vowel. So we'll learn why this is not a vowel, right? All right. Next one. So this is just an example of the Babylonian. This is, Bereshit of Genesis 1:1. So you notice how it would look on the Babylonian time, the Palestinian, and then the one you guys are all familiar with today. Okay. All right. So again, this is something that, we're not doing no Babylonian, Palestinian, or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you that it grew, evolved over time. All right. All right. So here's your little examples. So I want you to look at this word here, both of these words right here. You got malka, right? Is that what that say? What does it say? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So notice same consonants, right? Everyone agrees? Same consonant. So if you didn't have any nakud, any vowel pointing, how would you know how to sound this out? You wouldn't know. You would just sound them out both the same, right? Does everyone agree that that's how normally you all would do it? All right. Do they mean the same? Okay. So if they are spelled the same, but they mean something different, can anyone tell me what the first one means? Okay. Malka, which is queen. Malka's queen. How about this one? Malka is the aspiration of the hey. What is this one? Her king. Right. So the dagash and the hey, right, lets you know something. See what I mean? So that's what I'm saying is you're going to learn these little tricks first, and then over time, as you start getting context and things like that, you'll be able to do this. But for right now, I just want you to see that if you didn't have any of these things, you're going to see that they all sound the same. They all look the same. It means the same. That's not true. All right, so next slide will give you the fill-in so you guys can kind of see it yourself. All right, so you see right here it says queen. You hear it says king. But look at what it has, consonant. Right here, this is the historically longest, technically what we consider with the hey here, the vowel marker, but the other one is with the consonant, right? So technically, in old times, that hey would have represent something a little bit different, which we'll talk about when that day comes, when we start the class up. But at any rate, you're going to see this whole thing is going to be interesting as we start to see examples of these things here outside of the one I just showed you guys. All right. All right, how about this here? How do you say this word here? The one that says and king. How do you say that? Huh? Wamelech? How do you say this? What you're reading right now? Okay, so you said u. Okay, so u is a u melech. Is that fair? Look at the accent. Above the mem, there's an accent there. So what does that mean? The emphasis is at the mem, not the final letter. Or the file, off the lamed. So this is umelech, not umelech. Umelech, right? Okay, and king, right? But my point is going to be is, before I do that, how about this one here for Samuel and Samuel? How do you say and Samuel? So you're going to see something. Okay, so there's a schwa there. So how does this work? So how do you say this whole thing? You say u Shemuel. Anyone else? Someone says Ushmuel. Where we at? Anyone? So the question becomes, in this here, when you have a schwa there, right, or the shiva, right? Normally, what happens with the shiva, if it's under a second letter, it does what? It pauses in the syllable, right? And so normally, right, the second schwa there, if it's not on the first one, remember the first one is a vocal schwa, right? The second one is not a vocal schwa. It pauses in this, so we'll learn syllables. But my point is, it will pause, right? So if this was not let's say a name, right? Then this would be, okay. But not only because it's not a name, because that's not the grammar issue here, or not really issue, but the grammar is that the actual shureq here actually has its own syllable. Yeah. Right. It's a shureq. That's the name of the vowel. But it has its own syllable by itself. Right? So one would say, well, when do I know to use oo versus wah versus va? Remember, people had that question, right? How do I distinguish between that? They call it the bump rule. BUMP, the bump rule. Right? So the bump rule just means that the U in the bump, the U, you're going to use that when the B is a bet, M is a mem, and what else? And the P as in pay, right? So when that is at the beginning of the word, and you have to put and to it, it automatically is going to be a shureq, automatic, called the bump rule. So bump rule is just an acronym that you always should remember is if I see a B, an M, a P, then now I know why there's a shureq there. Okay? All right. So next slide real quick. All right. So here is a shureq, right? So it says only the exception to the rule. Every syllable starts with a consonant is when a shureq appears at the beginning of a Hebrew word. So initial shureq, or shureq as they would say, occurs with some frequency because the shureq at the beginning of a word marks the presence of a what? Conjunction and, right? Normally the conjunction and is marked with a we, right? But it is replaced with a oo on occasions. So the initial oo is always treated as its own syllable. The following consonant begins a new syllable. For example, the word for umelech and the king must be pronounced as umelech, right? Not right? Everyone's umelech, right? It has its own syllable. Okay, even if the first consonant has a schwa, the consonant must begin a new syllable of the word. So Samuel is how? U, Shem, U, El, and not Ush, Mu, El. So remember that the initial U always starts its own syllable and always stands alone. Okay, is everyone good so far? All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, say again now.
Do they say ve in biblical Hebrew?
Yeah, these ve or we, depends on who's speaking. If you're asking someone that's an Ashkenazi, if you're asking someone that's Yemen, it depends on who you're talking to.
Okay, so an Ashkenazi would say ve, a Yemenite would say
we.
Mm-hmm. Okay, or like a Samaritan or whatever, they might say ve.
Right. So you'll see maybe an Arab will say we, Yemenite will say we, Orthodox will say ve, gotcha. Ashkenazi will say ve. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. How would you say this one? This word? So you want to make it bigger? Hit that hourglass. There you go. Okay. Question: How would you say this and why? How would you say this and why? Okay. Yelchu. Okay. Okay. Yelchu. Why? Okay. So the schwa you're saying makes you stop at the lamed there. Okay. Everyone agrees. High five. Brother got it right. Okay. Great. All right. All right. So let's go to the next slide. Great. Good. Let's go to the next slide. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now, how would you say it? Yelechu. Question becomes, so because, in other words, the reason why it's not Yelchu is because the sere is a long vowel. So when it's a long vowel, you're going to notice that it gets its own syllable as well, versus a short vowel. See, so what I'm saying is we're going to go over some of these things here. Once we start to learn the letters, once you start learning the vowels, then we're going to start putting them together. Okay?
So is modern Hebrew a little bit more simplified than biblical Hebrew when it comes down to pronunciation and the vowels?
Vowels, sure, but a modern Hebrew is you have to know what you're saying versus biblical Hebrew is it's already there for you. You just got to recognize. But if you can get the biblical Hebrew, conversational Hebrew will come a lot faster.
Okay.
All right. So keep that in mind. All right. All right. Real quick, we'll go to the other one. No. That was it? Okay. All right. So for you guys, all you have to do is, for those that don't know anything so far other than you guys just need to learn the 22 / what they call 23 letters, right? Outside of that, all those that know the letters, I want you guys to start learning the vowels. You're going to learn them from the long, the short, the historically long vowels. I need you guys to start brushing up on those now. Now, when we get into class, we're going to do it anyway, but just those that are trying to get ahead, right? So if you're just trying to get ahead of things, I'm just giving you some examples of things that we're going to be going over. Now, once we do this, we're going to be reading scripture as once we get the vocabulary, or the vocabulary, the grammar down, and some of the syntax. Then we're going to go into the text itself, and then we're going to read, and we're going to break down what we read. And then we want to see if the translation into the English is correct or if it's not correct, right? So we'll see those things. And so that means as we finish the grammar portion of it, you're going to have what else? Grammar plus vocabulary. Grammar plus vocabulary. Grammar plus vocabulary. As you start to see this, you're going to start to build a vocabulary up, but the vocabulary is going to be based off of the text that you're reading, right? So you have to worry about any of those things. You're going to have a workbook, and in that workbook, you're going to be writing all your stuff. Remember the pen I told you guys to use so that you can erase, right? And start all over again if necessary, right? So we'll see that. I'll be giving also some PDFs to help out for those that may struggle in certain areas. I got some extra PDFs that I'll be giving out for them to help them out. And again, it's not a rush. The objective is I can get to at least chapter 12 is my ideal chapter for everybody. It's chapter 12. So the book that you guys already know, you got or that I already shared with you guys to get. If you guys get it now, just start going over it. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Okay. No problem. I gave Laria the links. Mhm. All right. So any other questions? Everyone else? Uh-huh. Just depends on when I leave to go to the land. So once I get a solid date, then because I got to make sure that the internet there is good. So if it's good there, then we should be fine. If not, I can start it, but then I have to see how it works. While I'm there. So all right, but just keep in mind now, the whole objective of this biblical class is a couple of things. One is you're going to get the grammar you need to be able to read, and to be able to translate. That's the objective. Read and translate. Okay. Huh? Oria? Okay.
Shalom, Moreh.
Shalom.
I wanted to ask, which book do we need? Could you maybe post that in the group?
Sure. I can post it in the group.
Okay, toda.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Anyone else? Okay. So keep it in mind. Get started. Someone had a question? Is Tiberian and Nikud the same? Tiberias is a place where it started. So it's just a place up near the Galilee, Nazareth area. Nikud just literally talking about the vowel system. Mm-hmm. Okay, if they want to be a part of the class, So if they want to be a part of the class, they can go to the Path of Yahuah on a Cash App, the Path to Yahuah. You can do that, or it's a $ Lamadyahu. The cost is $75 for the class. For the book and workbook, you get that off of Amazon. Together right now, it's like $45, and they have a laminated piece. I forgot how much that is, but altogether that'll only be like $58 if you want to like a laminated cheat sheet, if you will. I'll bring that in next week for everyone just to look at, see how it looks. All right. So if you want to be a part of it, I haven't thought about a cutoff limit yet because I don't want to have 100 people, and but but you'll see. And in the class, obviously, like I shared before, a couple of weeks ago, is once we get it going, you're going to get learn a little bit of Ugaritic. You're going to learn a little bit of Akkadian. You're going to learn a little bit of Aramaic, and then you're going to see, the difference between that with the Paleo at some point as we, grow. But right now, you really would need the grammar and syntax first to even understand the scripture, because if not, like you're not going to get an understanding of drop-off letters, for an example, where, and I think in Bereshit or Genesis, chapter 1, I think it's either 117 maybe, where you'll notice that for the word to give, right, the tan, notice that noon is dropped, right, inside the scripture itself. It shows that it's dropped. But what tells you it's dropped, right? So you'll see that there's a dagesh in the tav, or commonly called the tau. There's a dot there that lets you know that the noon was dropped in the root form of that. But you're not going to find that in Paleo. Paleo's not going to tell you how to figure out a drop letter when conjugation and morphology starts to create to make sentences. You're not going to get that out of the Paleo. So because of that, it's easier to learn this here, get a vocabulary, and then you can recognize, and then you can go from there. So that's why we're working in reverse, because there's a lot more. It's a better way of learning grammar to do it this way than the opposite way. All right, any other questions? All right. All right, so that'll do it, and then from there we'll just give you a date and everything. We'll go from there. Ain baya.